When my wife sat me down for a serious talk, she said, "I've already asked your brother to be my boyfriend, and he said yes." "What do you mean?" He said yes. I stared at my wife Vanessa while she sat there calm like she'd just told me about changing our Netflix password. We'd been married for 7 years, and my younger brother Logan had been living with us for the past 3 months after his apartment flooded. He agreed that our arrangement makes sense for everyone involved. She pulled out her laptop and opened a PowerPoint presentation titled, "Our New Family Dynamic," with a photo of all 3 of us from last Christmas. I've thought this through rationally, and the benefits are clear. She clicked to the next slide, which had bullet points about household efficiency and shared expenses. My brother walked in from the kitchen carrying coffee for her, but not for me. "Hey bro, we need to talk about the new arrangement." He sat next to Vanessa on the couch and they held hands right in front of me. Vanessa explained how this is actually better for you too. Better for me? My wife wanting to date my brother was better for me. "You've been stressed with work lately, and having Logan help with my needs means less pressure on you." Logan said this like he was doing me a favor. Vanessa clicked to another slide showing a weekly schedule. "See? Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you have me. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Logan has me. Sundays, we all spend together as a family." She'd color-coded it with my days in blue and Logan's in green. This way, everyone gets attention and no one feels neglected. I stood up, but my legs felt weak. "You made a schedule for dating my brother?" Vanessa nodded, proud of her organization. "I also made a chore chart and a budget breakdown. Logan will contribute 30% to household expenses now as an official partner." She showed another slide with financial projections. "We'll actually save money with 3 incomes." Logan sipped the coffee he'd made in my kitchen using my mug. "Plus, I already live here, so nothing really changes except we're being honest about feelings." He touched Vanessa's knee. "We've been feeling this connection for weeks. Weeks. They'd been planning this for weeks while I went to work every day thinking my marriage was normal. When did this start?" Vanessa looked thoughtful. "Remember when you had that conference in Dallas? Logan and I really bonded that weekend. That was 6 weeks ago. I'd been gone 3 days for a work requirement. You slept with my brother while I was at a conference." They both laughed like I'd said something ridiculous. "We didn't sleep together. We just talked about our feelings and realized we're compatible," Logan added quickly. "Vanessa would never cheat. That's why we're doing this ethically." Ethically. They kept using that word. Vanessa pulled out a printed document. "I found this polyamory agreement template online. We just need to sign it to make things official." The document was 20 pages long with sections about date nights and intimate boundaries. "You already filled in our names?" I noticed the date was from 2 weeks ago. "We wanted to be prepared for this conversation," Logan said while scooting closer to Vanessa. "What about our marriage vows?" Vanessa flipped to another slide showing statistics. 20% of couples try ethical non-monogamy. "We're actually being progressive," Logan nodded. "In some cultures, brothers share a wife. It's totally natural." He pulled out his phone. "I already joined some online groups for this kind of thing." Vanessa showed another slide with a house floor plan. "I'm thinking we convert the garage into a second master suite. That way everyone has privacy." She'd already priced out contractors. $18,000, but worth it for our new lifestyle. "Our savings had $18,000 exactly." "You want to spend our entire savings?" Vanessa corrected me. "A bedroom for my second partner. We need to stop thinking in terms of possession." Logan stood up. "I know this is a lot, but we're trying something new and beautiful." He put his hand on my shoulder. "We're in love whether you accept it or not." That's when I smiled for the first time. "You know what? You're absolutely right." They both looked shocked at my sudden agreement. "Really?" Vanessa asked, suspicious. "Really? In fact, why don't we call my dad right now and tell him the good news?" Logan went pale. "Why would we call Dad?" I pulled out my phone already dialing to tell him about your new relationship. "I'm sure he'll want to know." Vanessa looked confused, but Logan grabbed my phone. "We don't need to involve parents yet," but Dad already answered on speaker. "Hey son, how's everything?" So there I was with Dad on speaker and Logan looking like he might throw up all over Vanessa's precious PowerPoint. Logan tried to grab my phone, but I stepped back and held it up where he couldn't reach. The thing about my dad is he raised us both, and he knows exactly who Logan really is. He was his favorite growing up, but that changed after he borrowed money from him and never paid it back. 3 separate times. Now he's standing in my living room holding hands with my wife and thinking, I'm just going to let this slide. Dad was still waiting for an answer, and I was going to give him one he'd never forget. "What's going on over there?" Dad asked through the speaker, his voice carrying that dad tone that meant he knew something was up. I looked right at Logan while I answered. "Dad, I have some really exciting news about Logan. He's got a new girlfriend and you'll never guess who it is." Logan's eyes went wide, and he started waving his hands at me like he could somehow stop the words from reaching the phone. "Wait, Dad, it's not what it sounds like," Logan said loud enough for him to hear, his voice going high and shaky. "We were going to tell everyone in our own time, and this is really not fair." Vanessa stepped forward and put her hand on Logan's shoulder like she was about to give a work presentation to a difficult client. "Mr. Fritz, this is Vanessa. I think there's been a misunderstanding about how we're framing this situation. What we're doing is exploring modern relationship structures that many healthy couples are adopting these days. It's actually quite common, and there's a lot of research showing the benefits of expanded family units." She used that calm voice that used to make me feel safe, but now just made me want to throw something at her head. The phone went silent. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 full seconds of nothing from my father, and I watched Vanessa's confident smile start to fade just a little at the edges. Logan was gripping Vanessa's arm so hard his knuckles were turning white. Then Dad spoke, and his voice was flat and cold, in a way I'd only heard a few times in my whole life. Logan, are you sleeping with my older son's wife while you're living under his roof? Logan actually took a step back, like the words had pushed him. Dad, that's not exactly, we haven't, technically. What I'm trying to say is that there's an emotional connection that developed naturally, and we have future plans that involve all three of us in a way that's fair and balanced. And Vanessa has a whole presentation that explains the structure if you'd like to see it sometime. He was stumbling over himself, and it was the first time I'd seen him lose that smug confidence since this whole nightmare started. Future plans, Dad repeated slowly. You have future plans to be with your own brother's wife. Logan nodded, even though Dad couldn't see him. Yes, sir. In an ethical framework that respects everyone's needs and boundaries. Modern psychology actually supports these kinds of arrangements when done correctly with open communication and clear expectations. That's when Logan started crying. Not quiet tears, but full-on sobbing with his shoulders shaking. I knew this would happen. He wailed. I knew everyone would react this way. Nobody ever supports my choices. Nobody ever wants me to be happy. You all just want to control my life and tell me what I can and can't feel. He was doing that thing he'd done since we were kids, where he made himself the victim no matter what he'd actually done. When he broke Mom's favorite lamp wrestling in the house, it was somehow my fault for not stopping him. When he got caught cheating on a test in high school, it was the teacher's fault for making the test too hard. And now here he was again crying about how unfair everyone was being while he stood in my living room holding my wife's hand. Logan, Dad said through the phone, his voice still that scary calm. Put your brother on the phone. Not on speaker, just him. Logan looked at me with something close to panic in his eyes. Dad, we should all talk about this together as a family. That's what Vanessa says is the healthy way to handle these conversations. But I was already walking toward the kitchen with my phone pressed to my ear. I'm here, Dad, I said as I took him off speaker and closed the door behind me. The kitchen was dark and quiet, and I could still hear Logan crying in the living room, but it felt far away now. I need you to pack a bag, Dad said, and his voice was different now, softer, but serious in a way that made my throat tight. Pack enough for a few days and come stay with me tonight. Don't argue with them. Don't explain anything. Just get your things and leave. I leaned against the counter and felt my hands shaking. Dad, I don't even know what to do. They had a whole PowerPoint. They had a schedule with color coding. They already filled out some kind of contract. Dad made a sound that might have been a laugh if it wasn't so angry. Your brother has been pulling this kind of thing his whole life, but this is something else. You come here tonight and we figure out your next steps together. I know a divorce lawyer from my golf club, good guy. Won the case for my friend when his wife tried to take everything. We're going to need someone like that. Divorce. The word hit me in the chest, but it also felt right. Like finally someone was saying out loud what I'd been too scared to think. What about Logan? I asked. What about him? Dad's voice was hard. He made his choice. He chose your wife over his own brother. That's not something you come back from. Now pack your bag and get out of there before they try to talk you into staying. Vanessa's got that smooth way of talking, and I don't want you listening to another word she says tonight. I nodded even though he couldn't see me. Okay, Dad, I'll be there in an hour. I hung up and stood in my dark kitchen for a minute, just breathing. Through the wall, I could hear Vanessa's voice, low and soothing, probably telling Logan that everything would be fine and that I'd come around once I had time to process. That was her favorite word, process. Like, my whole life falling apart was just something I needed to think about a little longer before I agreed it was a good idea, but I wasn't going to process anything. I was going to pack a bag and go to my father's house and let someone who actually loved me help figure out how to fix this mess. I walked back through the living room without looking at either of them and went straight upstairs to our bedroom. My bedroom. The bedroom I'd shared with Vanessa for 7 years, thinking we were building something real. I pulled out a suitcase and started throwing clothes into it. I could hear footsteps on the stairs, and then Vanessa appeared in the doorway looking worried for the first time since she'd started her stupid presentation. What are you doing? She asked. What did your dad say? I didn't answer. I just kept packing. Underwear, socks, the comfortable jeans I wore on weekends, my phone charger, the book I'd been trying to read for months but never had time for. We should talk about this, Vanessa said, stepping into the room. Running away to your father's house isn't going to solve anything. We need to have an adult conversation about our feelings and our future. I zipped the suitcase and finally looked at her. My lawyer will be in touch, I said, and the shock on her face was worth every horrible minute of this night. I walked past her and down the stairs where Logan was still sitting on the couch with tissues all around him. He looked up at me with red eyes. Where are you going? We're not done talking, but I was done. I was so done. I walked out the front door and got in my car and drove to my father's house while my phone buzzed with texts from both of them that I didn't read. The whole drive, I kept thinking about that schedule Vanessa had made. Blue for me, green for Logan, like we were appointments in her calendar instead of people. Like 7 years of marriage meant nothing more than a time slot she could rearrange whenever she wanted. But that was over now. When I pulled into Dad's driveway and saw the porch light on waiting for me, I felt something I hadn't felt in hours. Safe. I was going to be okay. It might take a while while and it might hurt like hell, but I was going to be okay because I had family.